Welcome, everybody. I don't even know what to tell y'all about what is going to happen tonight, but we have some crazy stuff ready to expose for you to get you prepared for what is going to be the most important Super Bowl of our lifetime next weekend. And I want to tell everybody, like, mark your calendars. It's coming. We're going to have Hotep Jesus in studio next week, February 11th, Super Bowl Sunday. Watch the Super Bowl with us. We're going to break everything down, but we're going to give you a little appetizer, a little taste test of what we got in store for you next weekend. So let's go. We are live. Aquarian Anarchy, Men of Order, gang, back at it again. Let's get it. And look, our quote for tonight, it wouldn't be a good show about the Super Bowl coming up if we didn't do this one. It's from the one and only Kanye West. And the quote is, "Yo, Taylor, I'm really happy for you. I'm going to let you finish." And that's it. That's the quote. That's the quote. I'm not gonna do the rest of the quote. That's it. Oh, shoot. But I don't know. We got some craziness in store. I mean, I've never seen a buildup like this for a Super Bowl before, where you got the power couple, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, and all the Swifties and all the stuff with ZV Bear and the AI pictures in the White House. And now they're talking about Taylor Swift getting involved in the election and all this stuff, all coming to a point, and it's all pointed at February 11th, like what, 6 days from today. And it's going to be a doozy. What y'all got? What y'all got, Marcus and Nico?
A lot.
Well, I'm excited for all the subliminals to be dropped. I will be paying attention for those. And then pay attention to the reoccurring ones. Don't always look out for the new ones, but the reoccurring ones, you know, the same kind of message so that they can instill something a little bit more in depth. As for the celebrity nonsense, I try and stay away from it because it's like, I understand it's the most important election of our lifetime and of our lifetime, but yeah, again, I'm not too keen on paying attention to Swift. She don't pay my bills. Yeah. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Well, mine's kind of where I'm going to get into is going to get pretty deep, but I'm with Chad. I think that they've been building this up, and I don't think that's a coincidence. But I'm also kind of with Nico too. He's right. They're going to do the same themed things often. You're going to see, Obey is going to come out again and again and again and again. And do what you're told will be important, those kinds of things. But I don't know exactly what kind of ritual they've got planned. And to be clear, if you think that the halftime show, or for that matter, the commercials are just somebody creative came up with those, I've been paying attention.
Some really good entertainment.
Yeah, because I remember when Madonna came out with Baphomet.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you got. It's going to be an interesting. The halftime show is going to be interesting. The commercials are going to be. I'm sure we're going to get some stuff. We're going to get some stuff that's really going to make you laugh. But as you have seen, if you watched our last 2 Super Bowl shows, and I encourage you to go back and check some of those out. And really, we're even going to get into a little bit about like some of the ads from last year when we, like, before the show starts, or before the game starts on Sunday. So we're going to come in, we're going to start the show about a half an hour before the Super Bowl starts. And we're going to go through some of that stuff and kind of let you know what we can maybe see coming. We got some like little windows into the FTX thing with Sam Bankman-Fried, because FTX was heavy in the Super Bowl the year before that. And then we got a lot of AI imagery, and we got some
I think we'll see
some
more
CBDC sort of little hints here and there. So it's going to be interesting to see what they've got in store for us. And you kind of have to read the tea leaves a little bit, see between the lines, so that you can kind of figure out what some of that symbolism is trying to tell you. But we're not just going to go through this blind. I'm not nearly as well versed in this stuff as my two counterparts up here above me, Marcus and Nico, are.
Conspiracy theory either.
I'm a very conspiracy theorist minded type person, but I haven't delved into this other world of whether it's numerology, gematria, the different things, and some of the other symbolism nearly as much as you guys have. And so that's why it's great to have you guys. I think we make a really nice little trio where we each bring our own little flavor to this and make it to where we complete the picture. And it's a very balanced breakfast for our viewing audience. So let's get right into it. But before we do, speaking of a balanced breakfast, your day is not complete unless you master your mind with Men of Orders, Flow, and Apex. And soon, not just yet, but we will have the links for your ability to purchase those things going forward. But yeah, go to menoforder.com and get your stuff there. But without further ado, we'll let Marcus kind of kick us off here with. He's pulled up a lot of stuff on like what Super Bowl 58, what it means, what that number could mean for us, and a lot of the other things that are headed our way.
Sure, and just so everybody knows, these are a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about. I want people to understand these are just symbols. They aren't good. They aren't bad. They're just symbols. They're just being used. And you might say, well, this is Super Bowl 58. What'd you expect? They're going to have 58. That's going to be the number. Duh, because last year was 57. Right. And these shitbags planned for that. And so I want to get out of the way. Go ahead.
Can we because before you go to the next thing, I want to just. That's a really important point that you just made, and I want to kind of drive that home a little more. It's understand that whether you believe in this stuff or not, the people who pull the strings, the puppet masters, definitely believe in this stuff.
Correct.
And so what they will try to do, it's not that they have this thing where they're like, "Oh, we made it Super Bowl 58." No, what they know is when it's Super Bowl 58 time. This is what we do because this is what aligns with that stuff. Just like what like Nico has talked about this stuff. Like, okay, it's an 11-day or whatever. Like technology is going to be fucked up or something like that. Whatever those kind of they have these ideas of this when it's these numbers, you do these things. When it's these numbers, you do these things. When it's these numbers, you do these things. And so, yeah, what, Nico?
There's a lot of 8. There's a lot of 8 symbology. We're about to have the 48th president. It's about to be. It's you break down this year. It's an 8-year, and then you're about to.
It's 47th. So Biden is 46. Yeah, Biden. Right. Trump was 45. Biden's 46. So this will be 47.
I'm tweaking. My bad. Yeah. That was a tweak. But either or, there's still a lot of symbology in the 8.
Well, 2024 by itself is just like it's 8. That's 8 right there.
For sure. Yeah, and 8 also plays a role in the in what we're going to talk about because 8 is one of the 2 numbers. One of the things people need to kind of grasp when they're looking at the numbers, and this whole thing isn't going to be about numbers. I want to dive into the belief system of the shitbags and how that's going to play out as we go as well. But this will give you kind of a foundation of what symbols you should be looking for in the direction. And the first thing I want to talk about is the number 48. The first, or 58. The first thing that goes to Nico's form of numerology is that you have 5 plus 8, which is 13. And 13 in Tarot is the death card. So right out of the gate, you wind up with some death symbolism just by the fact that it is 58. And But in Hebrew, how they break things down, numbers are written differently than they are in these ship bags use 3 primary symbol sets, and those 3 and they're intertwined. But the 3 primary symbol sets they use are Hermeticism. They use, and again, these are symbols. This isn't saying they're good or bad. I use many of these symbols, but they use them for nefarious reasons. But they use Hermeticism, they use Freemasonry, and they use Gnosticism. And I think that's important. This comes from Kabbalah, which is Hermetic system. It's the Jewish mystical system. That's where a lot of this information comes from. So when we're dealing with numbers, because they believe that literally in the Jewish mystical system, that numbers created the world. You have 1, which begets 2, which begets 3, and so forth. There's a book called the Sefer Yetzirah that lines all that out. But in essence, how numbers work in Hebrew is you have 50 and 8 as it is. They're 2 separate numbers.
Okay, and so you don't just combine it like that for that system. Okay, gotcha.
Correct. It's 50 and 8, which are 2 different letters, because in Hebrew, numbers and letters are the same. There are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, and each of them have a numerical correspondence. You start off with like 1, and then you move to 2 and 3.
So then how does 50 have a number? Is it 5 and 0, or is it 5 and 10?
No, it's 50.
No, it's just
50. Because once you get, that's what I was saying, once you get to 10, that's actually 1 and 0, which is a different letter. See how that works?
Okay. Yeah.
So 10 is a different letter than 1. And so 50 is the letter Nun in Hebrew, which is basically N, and it is also attributed to the death card. So right out of the gate, you have, again, the death card playing a part. Some of the symbols that are also associated with the death card and with 50 are the death card is ruled by the zodiacal sign Scorpio. So you may see some scorpions, some eagles, or some because it's scorpions, eagles, and serpents. And I'm guessing serpents are going to play a part in this one because I've already seen some symbols. Go ahead.
Real quick. If you're watching this and you want to keep up with what Marcus is talking about, all of this stuff is in the description. So if you want to read along as he's going, so you can kind of get the references, that just pop open the description as you're watching, and that stuff is in there.
Yeah, and so you have that, and so Scorpio is going to show up. Scorpio is ruled by Mars, which is war. So again, that I think this is an interesting time.
That's coming.
Yep.
It's already here.
Right. The second piece of that number 58 is 8, which is Kaith, and which is a K or a C. And it is the Chariot card in the Tarot. It's ruled by Cancer, which is a water sign. And I'm also seeing a lot of water symbolism as well. And it is ruled by the moon. It generally means illusions. So in essence, what you're looking at is you've got 2 water signs, Scorpio and Cancer. You've got war and you've got illusions that they're going to be using as their main 2 symbols. So an interpretation of those 2 cards together could be moving towards death, or because of the Chariot. It could also mean death in motion, if you read it the other way.
What does that mean? Like plotting death or something like that? Or
probably like a carrier, or something that like would be
nuclear weapons.
Like some kind of catalyst to
disease, something. Okay,
right.
Gotcha.
Oh wait, at the 49ers, you break that down to a 13 as well?
Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't put that together. And I want to really quick just run through the list that involves 58. I don't want to get into all of these. And to cite my source, this is coming from Bill Heydrich, who is one of the high members, if anyone's familiar with the Ordo Templi Orientis. It's a magical fraternity. I actually know Bill personally. He's a decent guy. He could be a dick sometimes, but he's a decent guy. Big time leftist. but but I actually know him personally.
I thought you were describing me.
No, no.
Generally a good guy. Could be a dick sometimes. Yeah, that's me.
Right on. So some of the things that and how gematria works is in Hebrew, these things all have numbers and letters are the same. So they believe with Kabbalah that if two things add up to the same number, then they probably are connected. So these are all things in Hebrew. I'm reading the English translation because I don't speak Hebrew. But these are some of the things that's kind of stuck out to me of the list. We've got father is splendor, the ear, to hear, to obey. That's one word that means all three of those things. And that kind of hit me. To point or to sharpen. Again, hearing seems to be a thing. The great Yah, so that's a God name, hit me. God's assembly. The black, gloomy, unhappy, wretched, wretchedness, wretched one, all are this one. But to be clear, so is favor, grace, and kindness. So it's not just that.
So those are just negative qualities.
Correct. And again, these are just words that equal the same thing. Coming back to there's one of the things Nico said earlier. He said that eights are coming up in Hebrew. Eights are Mercury. There's a mercurial word that has a mercurial understanding that means speaker. That is one of the words that equal 58. Pledge or bound, to be marked, all have. Hilltop, to flee. Sigh or pant, rest or comfort. When I was reading through this list, the things that really came to mind were things like the biblical mark of the beast, because a lot of the things that were attributed to 58 were things that were associated with the mark of the beast. Things like a mark, things like obey, things like to buy, things like that are all associated with 58. So I would make a guess that they're going to use some 666 symbolism. 2 years ago they did in the last one I was involved in.
Yeah, the one with Eminem, Snoop Dogg, and 50 Cent, where they had the big white frame. They had the black cube stuff, like black hexagon too.
Yep.
And then they had all kind of stuff like that.
Yeah, and a cube and a hexagram also are the people don't realize that the carbon atom is 666. The carbon atom has 6 electrons, 6 protons, and 6 neutrons. And so that makes it specific 666. So and this is coming off the heels, if you remember, this is 2 years ago, of COVID and the injection of carbon into people. And so you could look at that as an activation. Maybe they were saying they were going to do something with that. I don't know. But that's kind of the like setting the stage for just the numbers. It's looking like we've got war, death, illusions. The mark of the beast seems to be like major, and I would look for water to be in there somewhere. Like I said, we've got Scorpio, which is fixed water, and we've got Cancer, which is cardinal water. The only one that's missing is mutable water.
Where's the Super Bowl being held at this year?
Vegas.
Yeah.
Sin City.
Okay. What'd you call it? I think there might be like some kind of crazy ass event that happens at the Super Bowl.
Maybe.
I think something like just somewhere out of the blue, because it's one of the biggest events ever, and it's a presidential election year, So I wouldn't be surprised if something pops off and then it just becomes very political afterwards.
That wouldn't shock me.
Well, there's already been the discussion of like Taylor Swift getting involved in that whole discussion, which I mean we know where she would fall on that binary. But then there's also like there's that whole buildup with her and Travis Kelce, and there's one guy that I sent you guys a link whenever you get a chance. It's a really interesting podcast to listen to, but Isaac Weishaupt, he's Illuminati Eyes on Twitter. Anyway, he talks about he says I wouldn't be surprised if Travis Kelce like the Chiefs win the Super Bowl and then Travis Kelce gets down on one knee and pops the question on national TV and like creates this big galvanizing moment, and then they become like this traveling mouthpiece for that sort of thing. And I don't know, like I don't want to make it too much about necessarily. I know it's an election year, and I know that's a big deal to a lot of people, and I'm not saying that it's not part of the overall scheme and everything, but I think a lot of times who wins a presidential election is largely a distraction. It means about as much as who wins the Super Bowl in terms of like what it's going to do to your everyday life, because the reality is the people pulling the strings are going to pull the strings of whoever's in that office, and it don't matter like who it is. There might be a little bit of some stuff around the edges that you could kind of maybe hold off for a little bit or maybe steer it in a different direction, but the bullets are coming. So like it's and the thing that makes me more concerned, I think, right now than like the whole thing with the presidential election is like before we even get to the election. So a couple of things. Number one, before we even get to the election, all this stuff going on with the border, and you've seen Cyprian actually brought this up, and I think it's a valid point that people should consider. Kristi Noem, the South Dakota governor, was basically talking about like she's prepared to rally like the National Guard and the State Guard against the federal government if necessary. And then you have all these states that are kind of talking about doing the same thing. Like, okay, so if you like activate like, and like South Dakota is a very small state. I think they have like, I don't know, some like a couple of dozen F-16s, and like they have, you know what I'm saying? Like these states, think about the resources that Texas has, and then you go to all the different states, and you just had a lot of different governor turnover where it went more red because of the pushback against the stabbies and all that stuff. And now you have this, what looks like it could be a fabricated story on the border where like, what are we doing? We're putting barbed wire up halfway into the state, and like really like this is the biggest thing that we have to worry about right now. And
but it plays well to Trumpers.
We're going to potentially start a civil war over this stuff.
Yeah.
And people are like, posting memes about how they're going to be like, Benjamin Martin in The Patriot, aim small, miss small, trying to pick off redcoats. And it's just like, well, man,
how deranged you gotta be to be like, all right, let's think about getting ready to start killing people. Like, what?
Right. Yeah. And to do it because of like something like the border, where it's like, bro, come on, you really want to pay like $8 for mangoes and avocados? Like, y'all know, y'all like love the benefits of slave labor and migrant workers, people who have iPhones complaining about China. Like, come on now, like, let's get real. Y'all using this stuff that was made, wearing Nike shoes, complaining about slave labor and the UUs and everything. Like, I mean, come on, like we all have this
little kids getting the batteries for their phones.
So there's that, but then there's also the deal with like, so all this stuff with Taylor Swift and these images. Shout out to ZV Bear. He's back on Twitter now. Has his account unprotected now. But there's all this stuff, and I got to tell you, like for a day or so, like half a day or whatever, the timeline was just flooded with that stuff, with everybody reposting them and commenting on them, and laughing or being shocked or whatever. I'll tell you this much: you could tell it was fake, but it was close. It was close to not looking fake. You know what I'm saying? Right. And like we're not far away, the algorithm keeps getting better and better and better, it won't be that hard. And somebody put up a thing of like Taylor Swift holding up a Trump sign at like the red carpet of one of these things, like the Grammys or something like that. Like, it's going to be hard to tell real from fake. So you have potential for civil war, the difficulty to determine what's real and what's fake. And then on top of all that, when it all comes down to it, the ultimate, whatever happens with the election, it's still all just like a cover for, there's still going to be some dumb shit that happens, regardless of who wins that election, if there even is one.
Still going to be war, still going to be robbing from you. It's all going to happen.
CBDC's coming, like you,
for sure.
And everybody thinks like, oh no, but my state vetoed or wrote legislation against it. Okay, all right, we'll see how that works. Like, that's kind of like the thing with Disney and Ron DeSantis. It's like, well, who won that battle? You know.
Well, and we've seen in Indiana when the COVID restrictions started going in, they called all of the governors, including the governor of Indiana, to each region, to a different area, and they were given their marching orders. And before that had happened, our governor had been like, I'm not sure we're going to cut, we need to, and then they pulled him into that, and then he come back out and we're shutting it down,
Mm-hmm.
Because they said, okay, well, these are your choices. You're either going to do that or we're going to kill your kids. Yeah. Because that's the kind of people we're dealing with. This is why I've always argued, do you just because you voted, do you really think that if there was somebody that was good, let's say pick a guy, and Ron Paul gets in there and becomes president, do you really think they're going to let him do that? Do you really think that people that are willing to murder your children are going to just give up because somebody voted? No, they're not going to do that. They're going to continue moving forward.
What, Nico?
Facts.
Oh,
no,
I
was just saying that.
No, well, I was just saying they nuked the whole wedding party multiple times, to try to pick off somebody who they thought was a terrorist. Like, what do you think they're going
to nuke it? But they bombed it.
Well, you know what I'm saying. I use the term usually, but anyway, but it's
professional.
Yeah, and if you think about it, so like, even if, let's say you're just like a stone cold gangster and you're just like, you know what, I don't care, they can threaten me all they want. What about when they threaten your wife and kids?
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. Like, you know what, you want a piece of me? Go ahead, bring it. I like it, but like, I'm gonna act different when it comes to the people I care about.
Right.
Because they're, I'm me. I'm willing to die for this stuff. I'm not necessarily willing to sacrifice my wife and kids for it, though.
Right.
And so like there's, who knows the kind of stuff that behind closed doors that these guys threaten these guys with.
For sure.
So we can try to hope that they're gonna have our back, but really, if it comes down to it, and it's like, all right, Trump, all these people who you've never met, who love you and wear MAGA hats and Trump 2024 shirts, it's either them or Melania and Barron. Take your pick.
He might say Melania and Barron because it's Trump.
No, I don't know. I don't think so.
I hope not.
Yeah.
For his sake.
Yeah. But, I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's. I just think a lot of this stuff is a lot more simple than it actually is all I'm saying.
For sure. So I want to kind of. So I agree. I want to kind of get back into the symbol sets that we're going to be dealing with. One of the things, again, I kind of started with this, but I want to say this again. First of all, what I'm about to share, I do not personally believe. Yes, I have studied it. Yes, I know about it. It is not something I personally believe in. But I think that they do. And like Chad said at the beginning, we need to be aware of that. Although I do believe a lot of Hermetic stuff, I'm not much of a Gnostic. And I think that the belief system we're dealing with, because Hermeticism largely, yes, there's beliefs that are associated with it, and same with Freemasonry. There are beliefs that are associated with it. They're not really belief systems. Whereas Gnosticism is. It is a belief. It is a set of beliefs.
Oh,
Um,
sorry.
so I want to cover that to that degree, that it's so people understand. I also want to say I'm going to make some real big generalizations, that I want people to understand are a generalization, because when I say Gnostic, people have to understand this is not one set of people. When early Christianity was coming into being, there were lots of differing opinions. And the Gnostics were what we in the future have lumped together as being the not Orthodox traditions. Okay, these are not Catholic, they're not Orthodox, they're not what would become early Christianity as we see it today. These are proto-Christian. In other words, this is before there actually is a Christian church. And when dealing with numbers, though, you have to realize we like to think that these were just a backwater few. The numbers I've heard in what I've studied is that they were probably at least close to as many people that believe these things as believed the early Christian, what would eventually become Orthodox beliefs. So these are a bunch of people. And they're a bunch of people from a variety of different areas, literally from North Africa all the way over to Asia and all of Europe, all of the Middle East. They're in a lot of different places. As with most of the things at that time, there were huge amounts of people in Egypt and in Greece, which adopted a lot of the Gnostic beliefs. And of course, they were all over the place, but those two places were huge. And a lot of the stuff comes from Egypt. Why Egypt matters is because where I actually think we go. When people start talking about Gnostics as a whole, and again, remember, this is not every Gnostic, and though this is a prevailing opinion, and that is that the creator God, the Gnostics believed often, and this comes directly out of Egypt. And to cite my source, I really like, and it's in the show notes, there's a YouTube channel called Esoterica that covers these kinds of scholarly pursuits of occultism and Hermeticism and the Gnosticism, and he covers this in great detail, and I'm not going to. But long story short, there was an idea in Gnosticism that the creator God was evil. He was a bad guy. And the creator God, they believe, was very similar to the Egyptian Set, or and there's a lot of, if you look at Yahweh and his symbol set as it comes out of the Canaanite pagan pantheon, because most people don't realize that Yahweh, as we know him in the Bible, was actually a pagan god before he was the God, before the Jews said, yep, we're the only one. And that particular god, Yahweh, was a storm god of the deserts, which is exactly what Set was in Egypt. And they wind up comparing them. So I'm a little bit skipping ahead, but in essence, the idea is that the creator of the world, to a lot of Gnostics, was evil. He was bad. Everything that is in the Old Testament, they feel, is controlled by this evil, wicked God who created a prison for us to live in. That's the world for the Gnostics.
So they basically think that he created Australia.
In essence, yeah. Right.
I'll go
Yeah,
there.
Right. Right. In essence, he did. Except for it's the whole world.
Yeah.
And
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Like it's the world as Australia.
Yeah, exactly. The penal colony. Yeah, for sure. And so
what a bunch of dicks.
Yeah.
That was a penal colony joke.
Right. I caught it. So in essence, basically, they believed that God was evil. They also believed he didn't realize, at least many of the Gnostics, he didn't realize he wasn't the God. He didn't know that there was other gods. until one of them got down here. Can you guess his name? Jesus.
Oh, okay.
So Jesus shows up, and Jesus, into the Gnostics, Jesus was what they called Logos. And again, I'm being very general. Logos was God. He was the real God. He was the total God. Now, the Gnostics didn't believe that he totally came as Jesus, but they, very similar to many Christians, believed that he was like God as a manifestation here on earth. And basically some of God's power, but that was God. And that Jesus taught that you should, and they believe that Jesus taught that you should begin questioning the old God and start honoring him. And in so doing, he could help you get out of the prison that is this world. So that is, in a nutshell, what many Gnostics believed.
Mm.
What I think that in what the rituals that they do for the Super Bowl and that they do on occasion seem to be like giving is they are either using that symbolism to like expand it, or like their power to expand what they need or whatever. They're either using it for fear or they believe it.
Yeah.
And they believe that there is an evil God. Now, different than
talk about that too, though, about that, how if there's enough of a belief that certain things will lead to certain things, that you can actually I don't know, like weaponize, for lack of a better term, that fear and that energy and that attention that you get from that stuff, if that's part, as part of that, I don't know, like ritualistic exchange or whatever you want to call it, right?
Absolutely. And what they're doing in the Super Bowl is largely what in magical traditions is called sympathetic magic. They're basically going out and putting on a play with the intent of getting in, and this is all on purpose, like Chad was just talking about, with the intent of that information, that play, that magic getting in your mind.
Right.
The whole purpose of it is it getting in your mind and you making that happen. Okay.
Acting it out.
Correct.
Sort of that's where the predictive programming plays the largest role, is by giving you like the breadcrumbs to go to the but instead they're leading you to the witch's house so that they can eat you, burn you, and eat you.
Well, largely, yeah. And so yeah, they're mimicking this imagery, trying to get you to follow whatever their ritual is. Whether it's like, for instance, 2 years ago, they were they used a dollhouse, they used Dolly Parton. They were outright telling everyone, "You are one of our playthings," and then proceeded to treat us even more like we are nothing more than playthings to them over the last 2 years. So yes, and it is absolutely programming, and they are trying to get it. And an example of how sympathetic magic worked in ancient times was, if you think about the cave paintings that they had in southern France, they drew like buffalo and whatnot. Sorry, my throat's getting dry.
No worries. It's okay to hydrate, but I just want to remind everybody, while you're hydrating, don't forget to take your Apex and your Flow daily, and you will be ready to rock and roll. Let's go.
Right on. So an example of that was in those cave paintings, they had buffalo drawn on the wall, and there's spear like impacts that they've seen, because what they would do was they would throw their spears in a magical fashion to hit the buffalo. Now you can call it practice, they're making target practice.
Yeah.
Right. But the idea for them was that they've done it magically, and they've prepared themselves to go out and actually get a deer. So it's a very similar idea, and that they tend to do in these performances.
Gotcha.
And what I think that has happened, and I don't have proof of this, but looking at the symbol set, many people like to say that these people are Satanists, and I don't think that's true. I think that's our word, or a modern word for that. What I think they have done is they bought the Gnostic line, that there is this evil God. They bought it, and they think, yeah, this is a prison. And instead of fighting it, because that's hard, the Gnostics would spend their entire lives in, meditation and, devout, like prayer to God, to try to get out of the prison, to try to devote themselves to Jesus, to try to get outside of the system that is the prison that they believed we were in. Well, what if somebody went, I don't want to get out of the system, that this evil God was in charge? What would happen if they were like, okay,
I want to rule the prison instead.
Correct.
I want to be the CO. Yeah.
That's what I think they're doing. They're using Gnostic symbolism. They are trying to empower the evil god known as the Demiurge or Yaboth or whatever. They had all kinds of names. But they're trying to empower him and give him strength by invoking evil.
Interesting.
That's why murder's a good idea. Stealing from people's a good idea. That's why all of the things, that's why these evil people hurt little kids in unspeakable ways. All of those things match almost to a T what you would do, in my opinion, if you accepted an evil God. And let's put that into perspective. That's the only fucking religion on the planet that has an evil God. It doesn't matter.
What color
Go ahead.
allergy? What colors does he usually?
Set is usually red or black. Generally
so
red.
Both the teams are red.
I know, right?
I know.
Well, remember we had last year was the Chiefs won it, and I kind of called that. I got it wrong the year before. We didn't see the blue and yellow imagery until it was too late, and I had already made my prediction, and I was rooting hard for the Bengals. But yeah, that's you're kind of tits up if you try to go against the red this year. The 49ers have heavy red in their logo, and actually, it's like the Chiefs are like red and yellow, and the 49ers are red and gold.
Yeah.
Because I mean the 49ers it's gold imagery. Like it's it's from the gold rush, that whole thing,
Well, all I have to say is there's another symbol set that comes into this play. So I wanted to kind of cover that, because that's
really interesting though, because that, like what we were talking about before the show, where I was saying like, well, it's, and I still think maybe there's a way that those two things kind of mesh together pretty well.
Sure. Hermeticism.
If you could just lead people through the 7 deadly sins, greed, lust, envy, vanity, pride, whatever you want to call it, wrath at times. Yeah. And like your laziness, all of these things just kind of like, it's like, oh, well, yeah, duh. It only makes sense that these are the things that are going to be really easy to suck people into stuff with and make that like, it's very rare that you're going to find somebody who doesn't want to have exactly what Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift have. And then if you keep moving up the ladder above them, and then beyond the people who are even above them, and keep going above them even more, it's going to get really, really tempting, because the power and the money and the sex and the fame and all those things elevate the more and more you get up there, the power that you have at your fingertips. And that's where, like, I think to the extent that maybe this idea of like the demiurge, the evil god, so to speak, I can see why people would call that Satan worship, because it's kind of the same thing. It's like, well, in some senses, like to the people who worship Satan or who look in that direction, he is the God who defied God, and like to Saul Alinsky's point, like hey, look, you got to give him credit. He created his own kingdom. It's hell, but it's his,
Right.
and
Paradise Lost.
so yeah, so it's I could see where those things would get where it would be, and I also like I don't put it past, like, deception is a big part of this. Like we were talking about the great deceiver here, so there's always going to be this stuff where it's going to seem like, well, if you just like the temptations that Jesus had in the desert, it's like, if you just bow down and worship me, all of this can be yours.
Right.
All those temptations are, it was for vainglory. It was for like his I don't know, like not carnal, but his human needs, the need to feed yourself. Yeah, base needs, right, exactly. So, and then the other one was to test God, to see, like, he's not really God. If he was really God, he would save you if you jumped off of this, precipice. It's like, that's not a good idea to tempt God like that. Like,
right.
Concept of what God is when he's being a malevolent, or not malevolent, but like being a merciful God. Like, you have to understand, like, God's job is not to intervene. Yeah. Sometimes, sure, but God's job is not to intervene.
For sure, this is his kingdom, and we're moving forward in it. So I agree, Nico. And the thing is, with the difference really comes down to, it's not people that read the, because this clarified something for me. And that is, I've always been like, why the fuck would somebody choose the devil? Who would choose the loser? Well, the answer to that is, what if he wasn't the loser? Because to the Gnostics,
in their story,
he's the winner. And he is, God does not play. He's very much like the deist. To the Gnostics, he's very much like the deists saw God. He doesn't really get involved much. And basically the only reason Jesus gets involved in the Gnostic belief system is because shit got really fucked up. And so Jesus had to, okay, let me make a little adjustment. Let's get in. Like I said, I don't want to get deeply.
Yeah, one day we can have a show where we actually go, because I can shed some light from my perspective anyway on like what the why Jesus was necessary, and why it's different from that story. But yeah, continue, because what we're trying to do is, and I want to reiterate, because you already said this as you started off, but for anybody who may have joined late or whatever, like, this is not something that Marcus is saying like that he believes. This is something that he's saying that the people who do believe it are the people who are putting on the Super Bowl.
Right.
So if you're not paying attention, you're being led around. And that's one of the things that this guy, so Isaac Weishaupt, one of the things that he says is that, like, it's not that maybe Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, whoever, Eminem, Snoop Dogg, it's not necessarily that they are in on it. They could be just useful idiots that are being led by money and power and fame and all this stuff, right? But the people who are pulling the strings do know, and that is their intention. That is the way that they're going about this. But there's a possibility that these people could be in on it too. So just pay attention, because if you're not paying attention, it's like what he was saying is that, like, it's fine to watch the Super Bowl, but just do it with your eyes open.
Sure. Because
there's too many people who, the reason why these things work is because they're not watching it with that attention to what's being done to them. And so they don't see it. And then that's how it actually happens. If you know the magic tricks, then it doesn't look like magic to you.
Right.
It just looks like, oh, look, I can see what his left hand is doing in his pocket while he's waving his right hand over here. Oh, you see when the chick came up there while she was walking up there and she's half naked and everybody was looking at her, that's when he switched the boxes. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. Like if you see that, the magic trick doesn't look that fantastic anymore, and it doesn't bedazzle you. Like it's just a guy doing some stuff and creating distractions and diversions. So pay attention and watch it that way. I'm sorry, Marcus, go ahead.
No, that's okay. Yeah, these things are intended to get to your subconscious. If you go on and involve your your conscious mind in it, you throw up a little bit of a wall between them. I do have to make one comment about your buddy, about the Weishaupt guy. Just so you know, the founder of the Illuminati, the Illuminati of Bavaria, which is what started the Illuminati. His name was Adam Weishaupt, so he got his name by coming from directly.
He may have actually that may not be his real name. For all
I'm guessing it's not his real name.
Like I'm guessing it's an alias that he used just to be on the nose with it. Yeah. So.
I'm just pointing that out. Funny. That more than likely
considering his name's probably not even Isaac. Right. You know, if you think about so follow the biblical part of it, and it's like Adam, Isaac, you just follow a few generations and you get to Isaac and Aaron and Abraham and everything. Like it's very,
he chose well, I think. But I do want to kind of get back to the symbolism, particularly with the yellow to get out. So we've kind of covered some of the overarching symbolism that we're going to be looking for. We're going to be looking for Gnostic symbols. We're going to be looking for, and to give a clue to going back to the last one I read, and I apologize to people. I wasn't involved with the last one. It's my fault. But 2 years ago, the symbolism that they were using that fits into what we're talking about was the black cube and 50 Cent coming down and being the hung man. That's all. That's all Gnostic symbolism. That's all because again, a cube is 666. We have the black cube is a symbol in Gnosticism and in Hermeticism for Saturn. And again, it's going back. And Saturn is attributed to Set, which is what I was talking about earlier, where the Gnostics understanding of a death god was similar to the Egyptians' understanding of Seth. And I also want to say that when I said earlier that there isn't another religion with an evil god, that's not entirely true. It's like lots of pagans have like an evil god here and there, but they don't have one evil god. It's like many.
It's not that their creator of the universe is an evil creator of the universe.
Correct.
It's like there's a bunch of gods, and some of them are mean and some of them are nice, and we just we try to feed the good ones so that the bad ones don't have as much power, and the good ones can win.
And to be clear too, the parallels between Satanism and modern what we call Satanism is for teenagers. No, it's not. There's not cults, large scale cults of Satanists all over the world. But this group of people are all over the world. So again, I really urge people to understand that there are going to be symbolisms that are similar to what you would associate. For instance, the Demiurge, one of the first things he does, aside from creating the earth, is he creates what are called archons, which are in essence demons. They're the same thing. They're evil things that go out and do the evil god's bidding. To be clear, one of them says no. His name is Sabaoth. It's not Sabaoth, but anyway, Sabaoth becomes a good guy. Long story short, because
that's funny because the Sabaoth is the term for like the heavenly host.
I know.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Go.
so yeah.
Explain it for the ignorant ones though.
Do what were you saying? Oh, so Sabaoth winds up being carried into Christian and Jewish religion, and possibly comes directly from Gnosticism, because you got to remember these are people. It's not like there's a line. It's not like today when the Pope says, "Hey, all these books are bad." You still had people hundreds of miles away going, "Pope who?" You know, so anyways, in the legend, if you will, one thing that is different from regular Christian understanding of demons and the understanding of the Gnostics is they believed that if an archon chose, which is a demon, to deny their nature and look towards the light and accept Jesus, they can be saved. And Sabaoth was the first example of that.
Okay.
So
I'd be interested to like look into like the origins of that, like, because the term, you know, it's just a word that was used to describe something. So like, what were they just? And because I wonder a lot of times there's a lot of this stuff where you go back and you look at a lot of these different things that came before Christ. That is, it's, you know, people look at it and they say, well, oh yeah, well, Christianity just copied this stuff. It's like, well, maybe, or maybe like some of this stuff was like a foreshadowing, like a signal of pointing to what was coming, and we just like suck at interpreting it.
yeah, you would think God would
So,
foreshadow.
you know what I mean? Like he does.
You
I
know?
mean, there's actually quite a lot of it. You know, quite a lot of it.
Yeah, for sure.
It happens in your everyday life if you're paying attention. Like you
Absolutely.
should see that stuff all the time.
Yeah, and frankly, that's for a positive hermetic like myself. Yeah, that's what my whole life is is trying to interpret what God needs me to do next. So, but I do want to get into other symbolism than the Gnostics, because and this actually goes back to the red and yellow stuff. I'm going to bring this little thing up from
I know.
Renee.
I saw that. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
By the way, Nico has to go soon, so
okay.
I want to give him maybe a second before you go on to the next.
Okay,
stuff.
go ahead, Nico.
Nico, if you want to like, I don't know, I feel bad because we haven't given you much room to breathe here, but
wait, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
I can.
Do you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, all right. I guess. Okay, get you some flow. If you're not in the flow, get you some flow. Go to just go to minimum order. Go to minimum order. Flow, apex. You know, both of our. Well, I'm not. Will be able to love me.
Nico, you're breaking up real bad.
All right, Nico's got to go get some flow and some apex on his internet connection because it sucks.
Yeah, you're breaking up real bad, bud.
All right, I catch up.
All right, man. That's it. Oh shoot. Okay.
So bye,
Right.
Nico. We love you.
Yes.
So I want to get back into the couple other that aren't directly like occult symbol sets that I had thought of in relation to this. One of the things is the thought of red and gold and red and yellow. And I guess I hope that the 49ers win.
And it's gonna happen. I have a bad feeling that there's like a 0% chance of that, because I want the 49ers to win, but I wanted the Chiefs to lose last year, but I knew better than to think that was going to happen. So
all I can
Cam, by the way, because he's a huge Chiefs fan.
So I hope I'm wrong, and which tends to be my mantra often with these kinds of things. God, please make me wrong about this shit.
Right.
But China's colors are red and yellow.
Yep.
So, and
that's part of what we talked about last year. Yep.
Yeah.
That's part of what we talked about last year.
Yeah. And so I worry about that. Another symbol I thought of is the fact that in essence, they're the same colors, because you can make the argument for gold and yellow just being, the same, because, but you can also make a association with gold and yellow because gold is the sun in Hermetic tradition, and red is Mars. And we talked about the moon being associated earlier, but The red and yellow or gold and yellow, both of them, it's red,
Red and gold. Yeah.
red and gold and red and yellow, would be Mars and the sun either way. And one of the things that I noticed is that the United States' colors are red, white, and blue, and the Russian colors are
Red, white, and no, they're
red, white, and
white.
blue. They're red,
no,
white, and blue.
Yeah. Oh, that right. Yeah, they're red, white, and blue, and Ukraine is the gold, the yellow,
Yeah.
or blue and yellow, blue and gold.
Correct. Yeah. And what I'm saying is maybe there's the symbol possibly of two teams with the same color fighting each other, which troubles me as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, particularly interested who would win that, because I think that if I were choosing symbolically between red and gold and red and yellow, which one would be the United States, I would go with gold because money and all of that stuff. So I hope I'm wrong, but there's some symbols there.
All right. So then the other thing is too, though. So we are witnessing the end of the American Empire. And if you want to know what the symbol of the American Empire is, I will show it to you.
Yep. Gold.
So I would not be surprised at all if we see the 49ers lose. As much as I want them to win, and I would like to see that. There's just too much evidence pointing in the opposite direction.
Right.
Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift, that whole thing. The whole like Chiefs narrative is just like so. It's become like a thing where like it's almost like a foregone conclusion at this point. I just don't see it happening. And the thing is, like, I think there are a lot of people who don't want it to happen, and that's why it's going to happen, I think. But what I was saying about the U.S. Empire and the end of the U.S. Empire is like, when you think of gold, like, so people just assume that because the U.S. dollar has been the reserve currency for so long that it's just like never going to not be. And like the Spanish dollar was the reserve currency, that like Spain was like the world power before the British, and then you just had there's like this cyclical upheaval of that system. And so I don't know, man, like global CBDC would not be a shock to me. And that's where I was saying, like, I worked with the Louisiana State Legislature, well, some of the legislators, on trying to craft legislation to help prevent a CBDC type of foot on your throat situation. Yeah. And I could not get it through their heads that like their language was too narrow, that they had it all narrowed down into this, like the Federal Reserve and all this stuff. I'm like, what if it comes from the IMF?
Yeah.
You have that's all they have to do. Just like, oh, all right, cool. Like you didn't even put it needed to be a very broad but very like targeted. If that makes sense. Definition, and it was just not like they didn't do it. I think there are a lot of people who know like something's coming and it's not good, but they don't know quite how to define it, and so it's like they're trying to fight the boogeyman in the dark with a cardboard sword. And that's not the weapon to defeat the boogeyman in the dark, so it's just tough.
It just occurred to me that something that could be my brain just went to the Wizard of Oz, and because a lot of people don't realize that was originally, I believe it was silver. It was propaganda. It wasn't a gold brick road. I believe I've never read the story, but this is my understanding. That it was actually silver that they were trying to promote, and it was a change in currency that came about. Very, very, very long story.
But even
going back to
if you go, so we were actually talking about this today in the Bitcoin Mystery School Telegram chat. That you go back, and so like the British pound is based on a pound of sterling silver.
Mm-hmm.
And even the so like the word dollar comes from thaler, which was Joachim's thaler was and there were a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
different thalers at the time, but the thaler was like a representation of basically like an ounce, which is I think 29 grams of silver. So even, go back 500 years, it was silver. It wasn't gold as the thing that was the unit of account. It was silver. Because, and I mean, hell, go back to we were talking about Jesus, right? Like Jesus was sold for 30 pieces of silver, not 30 pieces of gold. Silver is a smaller, you know what I mean? Like you can do smaller denominations to where, I mean, could you imagine how small of a piece of gold you'd have to be able to do like a micro transaction? Like it only makes sense that it would be silver that is kind of the commodity that was used as the durable medium of exchange.
Now we may be going off a little bit, but just
but the US dollar is
is pinned to nothing but paper.
Well, no, it's pinned to the power of the U.S. military to enforce it as the reserve currency that you buy oil with. When they stopped listing oil, and that's one of the things that was like a huge signal when China and Russia were both talking about trading oil for not U.S. dollars. Yeah, that's your signal. There's gangrene somewhere. Yeah. Because
I think it's been dead for a while.
Yeah.
It's just waiting. But one of the things that occurred to me, though, putting symbols together, is talking about the yellow in the logos and gold and all of that, but the symbol set being 58 and 8 being the chariot, which is ruled by Cancer, which is ruled by the moon, which is illusion. So it makes me wonder if they'll play with currency. Man, I hope they don't fuck around with CBDC, but I bet you they do.
I mean, it's only been like 2 years that they've been basically telling us that it's coming.
Well, again,
Project Hamilton was 2 years ago that they first like kind of really, really put it in motion, and then a year ago roughly is when they did like the little trial run for 12 weeks. And you have a few different countries that have already started to put something in place. So
now again, I'm stretching, but red and gold, war on gold, 58 war on silver. Like I said, it's a stretch, but it's there.
Yeah.
So I think that
we have our ads to watch for too, where we get some of those little symbols and those little hints, right?
Right, for sure.
And that's so. I'm gonna make sure to get a list ready of all the different ads.
Nice.
And maybe we could I can send you links that you can add to that you can put on Twitter for like the different Super Bowl ads from your account, or I can post them and then you can retweet them or whatever.
Either way works. Dude, you have access. I'll send you the code if you just want to download it on Twitter.
Okay.
X,
well, no, it's fine. I don't need to have another account that I'm
100%.
I got between Men of Order, this Hotep's Been Told You, and then I have a couple of my own that are kind of separate ones, whatever. But
yeah. Well, so this has been a little bit of an introduction. Again, I invite people to watch. We will be going live at 6:00 on Eastern on Sunday with Hotep Jesus. That'll be fun. It's going to be a little bit more laid back, and that's on purpose because we want to have fun too. I'm going to sit in front of my TV. What streaming service is it on this year?
It's on Paramount this year.
Woohoo! I have Paramount.
You have Paramount. All right. I don't have to send you my login.
I don't have to order shit. But
all right.
But and I'm gonna be smoking a bowl and having a good time. So but we'll dive into the symbols live, and we'll see if any of the stuff we talked about today show up. My guess is a few of them will. But if again, to cite my sources, I really, if you're interested in the Gnostic stuff, even just from what the fuck is he talking about with this or that or the other thing, the links to both the Demiurge episode, he covers the Archons too, and I didn't include it, but I also, his whole channel is on there. What's interesting about him is he is a scholar. The purpose of this is not to convert you. It's not to say these things are right. I think the dude's Jewish. I'm not 100%, but I think, and he just happens to study esotericism, and he's really good, very well read, and I suggested, if you liked what I was talking about with the Gnostics, want to know more, I would go there, because he is going to have the best information, and he has just started the series on the Demiurge and how it's going. So I really strongly suggest that. I happened to see it and had already been on this brain pattern. It was like, God's showing me where I need to go. So, so happened to see his thing, and it was very good. So anyway, that's that. Again, see us next week on Sunday with Hotep Jesus. You got anything else to say, Chad?
No, I'm excited about it. We're gonna be, like you said, we're gonna be on about a half an hour before game time, and then we're gonna just watch it unfold. And we want you to join us. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Awesome. So, well, until then, stay free.
Peace out.